can't have any fun. The Reef is a serious film. This is a drama with sharks in it, whereas Shark Night is...
But, you bad. Say that, and I always argue in something, is that, like, it really depends how much knowledge you have of these films, because I remember, I don't know if I mentioned it in the Deep Blue Sea episode when we did that back, years ago or whatever. And
it was 2 years ago.
Yeah. And the first time I watched Deep Blue Sea, I remembered it was when it first came out. And I had never watched a creature feature ever. Like, Jaws was something that came much later in my life. So Deep Blue Sea was like my first movie that I saw. And it freaked me out. I remembered like shaking watching that film when it ended. And now when I watch Deep Blue Sea, I just have a really great time. I just think it's so funny and it's so fun to watch. It's like a fun film to watch.
Perfect film.
Yeah. And I think it really depends where you land on shark films or creature features in general. Like, how goofy do you want them to be? Do you like them to be goofy? Like you said, do you like them to be closer to reality or closer to fiction? I think that somewhere in the middle is really good. So I like The Reef is, I can see where people find this because it like very tedious, but it's also a film that I think it's kind of rare to find in the shark film sort of area, because it's so slow paced and it really builds on that type of psychological thing. So if you're able to really get into it, like I have this, when I watch horror, I have a really over imaginative imagination. So when there's void, I tend to fill it with my own imagination. So before they get scared, I'm already scared. And I've worked up my tension because, they're looking in the water. Oh, where's the shark? Where's the shark? Where's the shark? And then that's where I'm going to get really nervous and then I'll start panicking.
Yeah, well, it's the paranormal activity thing, isn't it? Like something's going to happen. We don't know when. There's just long periods of nothing and then, which that's what a lot of the Reef is. They are very effective in making that feeling. Yeah. Like it could come, it's going to come from beneath you probably, but it could come at any moment. And they didn't even say at one point, we have to keep going. This is the ocean. There's millions of things there trying to kill you. We've got to keep going. So they know. This is not a situation I'd like to be in. Similar to we did 47 meters down a few weeks ago. Another situation I do not want to experience. And another one where they're stuck between, do we sit here and die or do we go out and maybe die? And very, very bad. Have you seen Open Water?
I haven't. It's a film I really want to see though. I just never been it's really hard to find here. In Canada, we have really weird distribution laws, especially where I am in Quebec. We have different laws from the rest of the country. So it's even worse. So I've never, I think Open Water I can now rent on YouTube. Finally, it was unavailable for the longest time, and it's so hard to find, basically.
I haven't seen it either, but I have it on DVD. I've just never watched it, so I could easily just put it in, which must sound quite frustrating to you. But from what I can tell, The Reef is very much like Open Water on the move, kind of thing. Yeah,
basically. I've heard when the film came out. I remember I think they came out at about the same time. So it was compared a lot to, I think The Reef was compared to Open Water a lot. But that's the thing is since then till now, I've never been able to get my hands on it. And then I kind of pulled out of creature features for a while because I got saddened by the whole asylum thing. Oh. I think I finished watching Two-Headed Shark Attack and then I was like, oh no, I can't do this anymore,
Yeah, I've yet to cover any asylum films. Santa Jules was close. But Santa Jules is very silly.
I think it's just when you do Two-Headed Shark Attack, it's unknown to me until recently. They've gone up to Six-Headed Shark Attack or something like that. Ugh. So it's wild. How many heads can you fit on the thing?
Yeah, how many is too many?
Exactly.
I would say 2. So the sharks are already pretty effective killing machines with 1. But there we go. So yeah, that's been The Reef. Something I'd like to do on all of these shows is compare the film to Deep Blue Sea. So I have in this case, a very short list of how this film is like Deep Blue Sea, because it's not like Deep Blue Sea in many ways at all. So, They arrive on a small plane at the start, in the same way that Sam Jackson and Russell Franklin, Dr. McAllister arrive to Aquatic on a small plane. When they're looking at the wall of shark teeth, there is a mako shark teeth there. I found out that it's a great white shark that's chasing them in the film, so the sharks. In the original, in the true story, it was a tiger shark, which is disappointing, because that would have made it more similar to Deep Blue Sea, because there is a tiger shark in Deep Blue Sea. But there we go. Just before the boat is capsized, Luke is going down to make breakfast in the little kitchen, just like Preacher does. And the only other thing that I found was the first person that we see die is Matt, who has a limb removed, and then he dies, and then a little later on, his romantic partner dies as well. So Jim loses an arm, dies, then later Janice dies as well. So romantic couple, both die, man first, losing a limb. That's it. That's what I got. Not very Deep Blue Sea adjacent, this film, other than sharks. And the last thing I like to do is, how deep and how blue is it? So, Kim, if I were to tell you that Deep Blue Sea is, on average, I can't remember, do you use metric or imperial in Canada? Do you use meters or feet?
We use meters.
Okay, fantastic. Wonderful. So if I tell you that Deep Blue Sea is about 14.5 meters deep and about 31% blue, do you think the Reef is deeper and or bluer on average than Deep Blue Sea?
You mean like the actual thing or like the film itself?
The actual thing, like the story. Does the story take place on average deeper or shallower than Deep Blue Sea? And what's on screen, is it bluer or less blue than Deep Blue Sea?
Less blue? Less blue and probably deeper. I'm not sure.
You are wrong on both counts. It is, it is a lot shallower. It's actually because
it's in a reef. I'm
yes.
an idiot.
Well, it's not even. It's the action. It's where the action is taking place. So it's mostly on the surface.
Right.
So there's a little bit up on the boats and things, and not a lot actually swimming.
Yeah.
down.
So yeah. Okay.
So it
Okay.
takes place,
I get now.
So it takes place like centimeters above the surface on average, and blueness, where Deep Blue Sea is 31% blue, the Reef is 73. It is the second bluest film we've covered so far. It's only 47 meters down has beaten it in blueness. This is bluer than the Shallows, bluer than the Abyss. It's bluer than everything else. Bluer than Aquaman. Very, because it's the whole the whole final 2/3 is just water everywhere with like little people.
That's
in it
true.
sometimes.
Yeah.
So yeah, incredibly blue, not deep at all. But hey, we covered it. So thank you very much for joining me, Kim. Anything you'd like to plug?
I mean, you've already talked about it before, so we do Movies and Tea podcast. Yeah, and then Game Warp. Game Warp podcast, which is, you can find all the archives basically. Movies and Tea podcast.wordpress.com and gamewarpblog.wordpress.com. And then my own blog is Tranquil Dreams, which is on kling.wordpress.com.
Okay, where can people find you on Twitter or Instagram?
Instagram is Tranquil Dreams. Twitter, I'm not very active, but it's Tranquil Dreams _.
Okay, fair enough. Well, thank you very much for joining me, Kim. Listeners, you can follow the podcast on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at Deep Blue Sea Pod, or email us deepblueseapod@gmail.com. Find more of my writings over at liveversusfilm.com. This is the first time in a long time where I actually have articles that I've written recently on there, because it's got to the end of a year, and Happy New Year, listeners, by the way, if you follow the same calendar as the rest of us. Happy New Year. I did my wrap-up posts for the last few months of the year, and I'll be doing some kind of wrap-up things for the year as well soon. So that's Life versus Film, Life vs Film. You can listen to me once a month. If you like movie trivia, then head over to the Lambcast and listen to me once a month hosting Lampardy, a movie trivia version of Jeopardy over there. And you can find Mark's, all of Mark's stuff are at moviesfilmsandflix.com, Flix. Next week, we are delving back into Rennie Harlin's back catalogue with The Adventures of Ford Fairlane. I know nothing about it other than it stars Andrew Dice Clay, somebody who I know nothing about. So I'm looking forward to next week's show. But as for today's show, thank you very much, Kim, for joining me.
Thanks. I had a lot of fun talking about Reef.
Always fun to talk shark movies with you. I've been Jake Lewitt, and I'll Deep Blue see you next week.